G'day everybody, Farmer Wade here for Billboard Battalion. Today we're in Canberra and we're meeting for the first time brand new One Nation Senator, number 4 in the party now, who's operational at the minute. This is our brand new Senator, Sean Bell, and we wanted to do an interview. I think we're the first one to do as a Senator. You're a Senator, so yeah, no, thanks for that. That's good, mate. So. We'd like to be bringing people the good news stories, what's happening as soon and as hard as we can, because we've put a lot of time and effort and resources into to being here in Canberra with the sittings. So I'm very, very grateful to be able to catch up with the politicians who are, who are in the fight, not the ones who are just in the tell you all the lies and sell you out, but the actual ones who are in the fight. So welcome to Billboard Battalion.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on, mate.
You are more than welcome. So you're not new to the parliamentary scene. You've been here for a little while. You might just tell us a bit about that, Sean.
Yeah, Wade, 2016 was when I was hired by Senator Hanson. Shortly after she came back into Parliament, I handed in my resume, went down to the One Nation office after that, knocked on the door, said, "Well done, great result, here's my resume."
Yep.
About 2 months later, I got a phone call. They asked me in for an interview, and that's when I started working for Senator Hanson. And so from 2019, I was brought on to basically I was put in charge of the parliamentary procedure.
Yep.
And so I've been assisting Senator Hanson and Senator Roberts and the party in Parliament, doing the parliamentary procedure for them, among other things, but I've been doing that since 2019. So, and then, yeah, I've been involved in the party with elections on an operational basis more and more. And then just after the election, before I became a senator, I became a member of the National Executive of One Nation as well. So I've been with the party and working behind the scenes on those things for a very long time. And it's following that I was given the opportunity to fill this position. That's
amazing, right? So you'd be happy with the fact that One Nation last election had a 100% increase in the senators. So that must be pretty exciting to see that happen.
It was. I believe it's One Nation's strongest federal election result.
Yep.
If you go back and look at 1996, I think our primary vote in the lower house was slightly higher, but we just didn't get the same results. If you look, then this was the highest result since then, and the most senators. So I believe it's our most successful election.
Yep.
And just from a personal, I was working on that election. I was very heavily involved, and I can say that everyone worked so hard, and we are so short-staffed compared to the major parties. We sort of run essentially on a shoestring budget compared to them.
Yep.
But the One Nation federal team, what they've put together, and the federal executive, the work they put in, and all of the candidates, it was like an incredible result. And you never know. You put the work in, the candidates go out, you're there on the day, and there was a lot of people who wrote us off, and especially after election night when they still go through the process of counting the votes. A lot of people thought, oh, One Nation's done. No, I think when finally they got around to pushing the button and doing the preferences, we saw Senator Whitten, he won in WA, and Senator Stacey won in New South Wales, so One Nation secured those seats.
So you're now a New South Wales Senator.
Yep.
So, a lot of the stuff that Billboard Battalion does is about farming, agriculture, and are you across the ag sector at this point, or, is that something that you're aware of, government policies that are attacking agriculture? Let's have a look at, for example, water policies.
Yep.
The impacts on agriculture of the climate change situation. And I know we interviewed Senator Roberts there only just a week or so ago about how they're trying to shut down discussion on climate change, trying to censor people. So is any of that on your radar, that sort of thing?
100%. So I won't. So I'll say, like Senator Roberts, for instance, if there's something on the Murray-Darling Basin, I'm going to probably defer to his expertise.
Yes.
But One Nation wants to bring balance back to that plan. We look at how it's really destroying livelihoods. I know that on the issue of the water buybacks from the federal government, there's just a huge amount of concerns there. You look at the way they calculate the environmental flows. That whole process, we need to make sure it's fair and looked at properly, because it's not working. And I remember one of the first things I ever did with the party actually was go on a tour of the Murray-Darling Basin with Senator Hanson and Senator Roberts back when I was, just a staffer carrying the bag. So I've been from the top of the Murray all the way down to the South Australian
down to Goolwa, the
barrage. Been down there. Yep. And so I'm across. I'm not going to claim to be an expert,
of course,
but we go out, we talk to people, we look at the impacts they have on the ground. And so what I was just recently out in rural regional New South Wales, in Tamworth. I was also in Albury as well, talking to some of the farmers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear all sorts of things, issues with the faulty gauges and the way they measure things. And then one of the stories that was being told, the new rules that they put in essentially is like, you can drain water at this amount, but that's flood. And once it gets to that level, it's in flood, essentially. So what do you need to pump water for when they're in flood? So these are the things that the farmers on the land are fighting every single day to correct, these like bureaucratic oversights and mistakes. The other issue, you talk about the climate change policies and the net zero. I have personally, I think that's one of the most critical issues facing the country. And so you'd be familiar with the RES zones, for instance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've worked really hard to try and bring that to people's attention. A lot of people don't understand these renewable energy zones that exist. A lot of people feel like, it's over there, I'm over here, the city's over there, it's not going to affect me. And then you show them the maps, and then they realise they're about to have a gigantic power line just cut straight through their property.
Yep.
So they might not be in one of those zones, but the consequences of those zones is going to hit so many people. Out when I was in New England in Tamworth, whole heap of fire. That area's been ravaged. And it's things like they don't take into account, and they'll change these things without any consultation with the communities. It's quite disgusting, but even flight paths of the small planes compared to where the airfields are. And so I could go on about it all day because they get to the minutiae of it, but I reckon one of the worst things is that the people putting these projects in, they look at farmland and they see cleared area. They go, oh great, this area is cleared, let's run some power lines through there, it'll be easy. And so it's actually that agricultural land that winds up targeted, and it's the farmers who end up suffering. And they've been trying to get this, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why One Nation was so successful at last federal election, and we've seen that surge since, is because we've taken all that feedback on board, and we're listening to the people on the land, the farmers. Senator Roberts and behind the scenes, myself and Senator Hanson, we've been fighting for this for years, and finally it seems like it's starting to cut through. People are starting to wake up.
It's the things that people are seeing now have been in the pipeline for decades, and we get called to present at a lot of these meetings against whether it's wind turbines, whether it's the transmission lines, and so on. And these kind of things are just a sideshow. They're just a box-ticking exercise to say, we consulted with the public.
Yep.
No, you didn't. The deals were already done.
Yep.
And they put this on to make believe that the government is consulting. But this fits into an international agenda, and the net result is that they're going to destroy Australia's energy system.
Yep.
It cannot do what they say it can do.
No.
There's no way in the world it's going to do it, and it's going to have massive impacts on farmland. They're creating wars between friends and neighbours and relatives who have been there for generations.
Yep.
And we know the people personally. We know what's happening, and we know the amount of pressure that farmers are being put under with all this government stuff that's happening.
I've talked to people on the land, they'll explain that they get put in this position where the projects are putting up, the power lines are coming, and they'll have people say to them, listen, you can deal with this now while your property's still worth something, or you can wait until we put these power lines in and your property's worth nothing. So make a decision. Do you just deal with this now or you deal with this later? And that is just disgusting. The pressure they're putting on people, and again, it just doesn't. It's so working on getting attention to that, telling those stories, and because I know that a lot of people think that in the cities they don't care, but there are a lot of people who actually do care. It's just about getting that information to them. trying to cut through that noise and explaining that, like, no, these are real lives, real families, and it's being torn apart. Like,
look, and this is what this is what we've been doing for a long, long time. We do presentations in the cities, and people there love their farmers, and we see a lot of the other parties. They're always trying to drive that wedge. So, the people in the city don't care about us here in the country and blah, 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 when the exact opposite's true. But they create, I know, we went to a year ago or so, we went to a round of public meetings in the Echuca area in Victoria. And Anne Webster, who ran some of these meetings, her main thing was, you people know that the people in the city don't care about you. That all they want is to know they've got power. If that wrecks your farms and your life, they don't care. And I spoke at that meeting and said, that's enough of that. You're playing the divide, create two warring factions. We've seen it 100 times. People in the city care about where their food comes from, in particular. They care about farmers, in particular. So I think what you're saying is great. And if one nation can bridge that gap, then that's going to be enormous, because that's what we need to do. We need to bring people together and have the proper education so they understand what's happening.
And that's one of the things I've already been looking for feedback when I go. When I've been out in New England, when I was out in the Hunter, I've been saying to people, send my office the photos of the forests that have been destroyed, the national parks that have been destroyed. Because people, like the government, they just kind of cover that up. People tell the stories about koalas being bashed to death, and they laugh it off like it's a conspiracy theory, but it's all real. And when people in the cities find out about that, it does make them stop and think. And again, it's about just making sure that information is told, that story is told. And I think you'll find, I don't remember the exact number, but a recent poll came out that shows, I think, the country is really at this point where they don't support net zero. They're almost the borderline majority, I think, do not support net zero. And that means there's lots of people in those large city areas who have come on board, and they're seeing the truth of it too.
Well, look, when you talk about the Hunter, right? So we ran into Dan Repacholi a little while ago here in Canberra. He's just a new Labor Party politician, and he comes from the Hunter Valley. Well, that's where his work was. And we've been trying to get on to Dan to do an interview like this. And they get the old, get onto my office, and they will stuff you around, make sure you never get to speak to me. That's how it works, majority. And so here's the deal. The Labor Party are in the business of systematically a controlled demolition of Australia and the Australian energy system and Australian jobs.
They talk about a green energy transition. Well, really what they're doing is they're transitioning a bunch of workers in these industries that have supported the country for so long. They're just transitioning them to unemployment.
Yes, exactly right.
And all of these promises that they're making about, we're going to transition. There's a new government body that's been established called the Net Zero Economy Authority. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, and so their whole permit is to go out and they're going to transition these workers. And you look at their key areas of industry interest, and one of them is green hydrogen and green metals. And I, at this point, I'm like, has that not just been exposed, for instance, as a complete joke? And they are going out, they're trying to sell this to the workers in those areas, the families and workers in those areas. And it actually fires me right up. Because
that's good.
Just like they stand up and said, we're going to bring down the price of electricity by $275. They repeat that ad nauseum. Not true. They hold up the Medicare card and say, this is all you'll need to see a GP.
Yep.
Untrue. They're going out to these regions and they're telling them that they're going to be able to replace coal-fired power, coal mining, and mining in general with green hydrogen-powered green steel facilities. It's just not going to work.
It's all absolute lie. It's not just misinformation. It's barefaced lies. It's a systematic, controlled demolition. You look at the greenies side of it. Even right now, we've got greenies going crook about farmers who might clear a little bit of vegetation.
Yep.
And the flip side is you go up to some of these big wind turbine factory areas. They just dynamite the top off complete mountain ranges. Yep. They just blow them to pieces. Where are the greenies there? The greenies are a joke. They're lost. They're dead in the water, mate. They're turned into nothing but just a bunch of stinking commos. They're all on board with all the lefty crap that they want to do to wipe our country out.
Yep.
They won't fight for what's right. They won't fight to protect our country and our safety, because once you lose energy supply, and we've been in Victoria, like we've been this far off having to shut down cool stores and food storage places there a few times. So these greenies, they are not interested in Australia, and this is why we're trying to hold them to account. That's why we're here doing things. You know, I know we get a few people that say, "Oh, Wade, you know, you give One Nation a go, you talk to Ralph Babette, you talk to Barnaby Joyce, blah, 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 but, you know, you always get stuck into the Greens and the Labor Party." Well, I've asked so many of the Greens and the Labor Party, do an interview with us. We're equal opportunity employers here.
Yep.
You know,
have they ever said yes?
They run and hide. They are liars. They are gutless cowards. The Labor Party is a joke. The Greens are equally as big a joke. You know, we see them get up there in Parliament making their maiden speeches, and it's all you can do not to just throw up in the gallery, because you see they get up there and they say, "Oh yes, we want to support families. Oh, families, we're going to support families, and we want to housing's big." The hell you are, you lion pack of mongrels, because all their policies that they support are destroying families. They're making home ownership impossible, because that's the international standard. That's the thing. You no longer own anything. They want to destroy their energy ability to afford energy. Everything that's good, the Greens and the Labor Party want to destroy it, but they just barefaced lie. Now, most of the people just, I don't know, just see that there's something wrong and they don't look at it. But this is where we get a lot of people who say the government's illegitimate, don't vote. But the one thing that we have got from voting is people such as yourself who can at least get in the Parliament and contradict them and take them on and challenge them. If there's no challenge, then it's just a fait accompli.
And then it's quite, I mean, I think I'll touch on that, and I'll also touch about, because you talked about how all of this a lot of it comes from overseas.
Absolutely.
It's like, so you look at the United Nations, for instance, and you go back, you look at history back into the 1970s, you look at things like the Lima Agreement.
Yes.
After that, you see Agenda 21. You know, people sometimes, you bring those terms up, they might sound a little silly, but I'm telling you, if you've not gone and looked at those documents, looked at that history, what we have now is just a continuation of those exact same programs that the UN set up. The Paris Agreement, again, it's a continuation from that. Now, this is one of my pet topics. It's super nerdy, but there's a thing called the External Affairs Power. Are you aware of this?
Yes.
Yeah, and so every single environmental law that we have in Australia is actually a flow-on from the External Affairs Power. Federal. Again, I always tell people, go back, look at your history, look at the Tasmanian Dams case.
Yes,
yeah. And this is why One Nation's been so opposed to these international treaties and signing agreements with the UN, because every time we do that, we actually create an avenue for the federal government to expand its power. So I know One Nation's, I'll say, like, I would love to just go review every international treaty we've got, and probably shred the vast majority of them, because it's that abuse of the external affairs power that has sort of ceded so much of the state's power to the federal government, and is really, and people don't realise this, but borderline every environmental law is downstream from an international treaty.
Absolutely, and the thing is, these are deliberate actions. Now, the Lima Agreement, I remember talking to one National Party politician, and he said, a Lima Agreement doesn't exist, there's no such thing. And now, I don't know if he's either that stupid, or they're that frightened to even touch on any international anything. Now, we've been tied up with the international agreements now and treaties for years, and why our country is going to hell in a handbag is because of these international treaties.
The wholesale destruction of Australia's capacity to manufacture.
Yes.
The seeds of that were born in the Lima Agreement.
It absolutely is.
So, and that's something I didn't know that. my whole life, that's something I sort of went finding One Nation. I remember it was 2015, 16 when I was like starting to look into these things more, and I remember looking at the One Nation website, and I was there with my mates because they were arguing. They were saying all this, basically our whole lives you're raised to have opinions about people, and we're going through it, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, that policy's okay, that policy's fine. Then we get to the Agenda 21, and they're like, well, that's clearly nonsense. And I'm like, well, is it? How about we have a quick look into this? And that was it. That was when you realise, oh no, it's real. The UN stuff, and it's not. And this is what I try to explain. Sorry, but the reason why One Nation, we constantly raise this issue of the United Nations and the sort of ceding of our sovereignty to these international organisations, is because it gets exploited by Labor and the Greens and even the Coalition to take away your rights, take away your state rights. People, a lot of farmers, the Green they complain about the seeds of that exist purely through these international treaties and the exploitation of the
and we do use the term red tape and then green tape. So the green tape, for people who might not, what are you talking about green tape? It's all the environmental crap that farmers get squashed by. It doesn't matter what you want to do. And now that green tape is expanding into building of houses, building of anything, infrastructure, land management, and that's another whole thing. But I'm not sure if you're...
and there's a duplication there too. State green tape, federal green tape. That's one of the things we said at the election too, is we need to start looking at like just totally cutting back on that duplication. Like why when the states have it, the federal government has it, and there's that duplication of work. To me, it almost looks intentional. They're making it intentionally difficult so people cannot, mines can't proceed, the farmlands can't proceed. The housing crisis. It's almost impossible to get the amount of approvals needed to then get these communities built or homes upgraded. And you look at the new standards. This is more into red tape for if you're building new properties, the actual hoops and rules that you have to jump through to build a home to
conform to all this new crap.
Yeah, the size of doorways. You also have bathrooms, no steps involved. I haven't got all the figures in front of me, but I was reading through it the other day, and it's like, well, no wonder we've got a housing crisis, because on top of the mass immigration, and on top of that, now we got on a state level people jumping through these regulatory hoops. It's no wonder no one can build a home on top.
And in addition to that, of course, the universities now are running courses about thermal inspectors for homes and all this other stuff, right? And that's because they're going to start saying your home is not up to speed to deal with climate change, etc., etc. You're going to have to do that. It's going to cost you another $100,000 on top to do this, and this is very real stuff. And people are going to go, well, we can't afford that. Well, you're just going to have to move out then. Get rid of the house. We'll take it off your hands. Blah blah blah. The Shire will do it and sue you for the money. This is a minefield, and we just got signed up to back in July, 19th of July this year, the World Health Organization International Health Regulations. And as I say, that incorporates the One Health Policy. Now, I'm not sure if you're across that at all, or happy to speak about that.
Let
me just say, that's something that'd be good to see you catch up on, because this is
I'll just jump to the One Health. Is that their One Health in relation to their global pandemic rules? Is that the one about the spreading of viruses and stuff, or is that the gentleman who was like a vet in Canada and the United States developed that whole process? Is that One Health?
It's a part of it, and what the United Nations are saying is that everything on the planet, human health, animal health, the environment, your food, farming, trees, the whole lot is connected. And what they're saying is that they need to take control of every single thing. Now, you imagine these psychos getting control of everything, and this is what the One Health, this is what the IHRs are about. The Australian government has to now create authorities to enforce this stuff. And I think if you look at the CDC, they want to develop a CDC, and this is where literally Mark Butler, Albus Leasy, and the rest of the scumbags in the Labor Party and the Greens who support this stuff have sold this. They've ceded our sovereignty. These other people now own Australia, whether you like it or not. That's where we're at.
And I know I don't have, like I said, the One Health. I am familiar with it. I've actually done that thing where you go through the departments and you Google One Health, every department, not every department, but you're going to have a whole bunch of them. Quite chapter and verse, straight from the United Nations, straight from that One Health stuff, and it's sort of littered through all of our. And then this is why you see all around the world, so many nations struggling with the same issues. This is all coming from the one source, and it's a lot of it's UN. You do have other international organisations who do the same thing. Yep. We've done a lot of work trying to expose this, and then you're right. Other politicians, actually, the Prime Minister gave a shout out to Senator Roberts the other day when Senator Roberts was talking about. It was about. Do you recall what this was?
So what Albanese said was, we want I think the coalition to talk to Senator Roberts about his thing with what was going on with the climate change. And the United Nations and so on, that's where they get their policy from. Or words to that effect, he was ridiculing the whole thing.
It was the World, so Senator Roberts pointed out that the World Economic Forum, I have to look it up.
Yep.
And then I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's a conspiracy theory. And I remember looking at that, Googling that, and there it was straight there. It was a straight chapter and verse of the World Economic Forum. Yep. And that's like, it's difficult sometimes to know, are they just ignorant or are they being deliberately misleading?
Well, as we know, politicians, no pun, most of them, they just lie to your face because they can't argue with the facts. So the only thing they've got is to lie and then run away.
Yep.
And hopefully the mainstream media cover that for them.
Hold up the Medicare card, repeat the $275 power reductions, promise everyone that green hydrogen is going to replace the capacity to manufacture, and I just repeat it ad nauseum.
Yep. Yeah. Well, right now, we did a live interview today with some people in Canada.
Yep.
And they have an ostrich farm over there.
Yep.
And the Canadian government has basically declared war on them. They've got half of the Canadian Royal Mounted Police over there on their next door neighbours. They've commandeered the farm, they've arrested them, thrown them off under some biosecurity lies.
Okay.
Bird flu. Yes, H5N1. So this is what the world can expect.
Yep.
And this is, Canada's ahead of us in this stuff. But I say to Australian farmers, be aware, this stuff is coming here. They're setting all the groundwork up now. That's what the WHO is going to do to us because they've said that. I hate farmers. Farmers commit 32% of the CO2 emissions. What a load of crap. But so they've already said they're targeting us. The banks are now creating policy where they will give you a carbon report on your spending to show you how much carbon you've spent. So that doesn't ring alarm bells for everybody, because at some point you're going to go, well, you spent too much, all of a sudden we're cutting your money off.
Yep. And then you've got the smart meters coming in too. I mean, again, and then people don't think that the government is going to be using those smart meters to start implementing some of those things as well.
No, absolutely.
We tried to warn people. I'd have to go back and look at the first. It was actually James Ashby who raised smart meters. Said, "Well, we've got to get on this," but he was just a little bit too far ahead of the game because we tried to warn people about what happened in the UK with the smart meters. We tried to show people the second they install it, people's power prices go skyrocketing. So all across Australia now it's becoming mandatory. Some places it's still not. And I'm telling you, if your energy provider allows you to stay off a smart meter, don't go on a smart meter. It's just going to increase your bills. It's going to be a disaster. We've tried to warn people about that too, but unfortunately, it just seems that on that one we'll have to look into it too because they just rolled it out.
And they don't ask anybody with these things; they just do it. And what's going to happen? And I'm thinking in Queensland, there maybe a year ago or something, they shut down. I don't know the number. Say 120,000 homes air conditioners. Just turn them off because they can now remotely do that. And what's happening is they're blowing up the coal-fired power stations, literally blowing them up.
Yep.
They're wrecking the system, and then they're going to say, "Oh, look, because of climate change, we've got to shut down more of this." No, you've wrecked the electricity system. You've built this stuff that it's impossible to service what's needed.
And then countries like China and India, and even the United States, they're just laughing at us because they don't what they like. Oh, great! They've destroyed their economic advantage. They've destroyed their capacity. That's just someone we don't have to compete with. And they'll keep selling us their things. We'll keep having to buy it off them. Great for them, not so great for the Australian people.
Well, and look, what you're saying is true. I think a lot of the actions that the environmental protector office of the environmental protection agency, whatever it is, the things they've done have cost Australia so much manufacturing. I think they've shut down, like how much coal mining has been stopped by them, jobs lost, wealth lost.
Yep.
And as anybody with half a brain would know, if we're selling coal to the Chinese or the Indians or whatever, they're burning it. It's going up in the same atmosphere. So the people who, they're on a suicide mission. The people here.
I mean, do I need to? I suspect your audience is pretty familiar with the fact that if Australia reduced our emissions to absolute zero, the effect on global temperatures, if you even believe it has an effect on global temperatures, would be was it chief scientist? One of the top. The effect on global temperatures would be virtually nothing. That's it.
Yep.
And then what was the other report came out the other day and just showed that China is basically eclipsing our global emissions every 12 days?
Well, I mean, they're building new coal-fired power stations, virtually every week. And we're sending huge amounts of coal over there. They're wrecking our country. So,
and that's why I know that in places like the Hunter, with its coal mining industry, there is enough coal in the ground there to last hundreds of years, and we should be utilising it. And this idea that this industry is going to disappear or die, the only reason it's going to die is if the Labor Party just transitions everyone into unemployment. Those good jobs in those good industries should be supported. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what we're trying to show a lot of those workers in those communities. Yeah, we don't need to transition you from a job that exists, that is a good job,
to nothing,
to something like to these green hydrogen pipe dreams. And I mean, but they're essentially just green hydrogen is just another way of saying really inefficient, silly hydrogen battery.
Well, something's not going to work.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so I mean, I'll go back for a second to Dan Repacholi.
Yeah.
Came out of a coal mine. He was a fitter and turner at a coal mine.
Yep.
Came out of there, straight into the Labor Party here in Canberra, and now supporting the policies that destroy the very workmates and the coal industry. They're in the business of shutting that down. So like we go and try and get interviews with these people, and it's obvious why they don't want to talk to us. But, what would you say to them in terms of, well, maybe talk to Billboard Battalion, maybe tell the truth for a change, maybe actually tell your supporters? Because every one of these Labor politicians gets up, oh, I want to thank the union for this or some other union or whatever, while they're destroying those very unions. So what would you say to the Labor Party about doing interviews with us? You can tell we're a very scary, huge, multi-million-dollar outfit, you know what I'm saying?
I'll put in a good word for you. If I said, I said you should sit down and wait, have a chat to them. I mean, and I'll say just tell your side of the story as honestly as you can, because people deserve to hear that from you. Now, I disagree with his side of the story. I think that their policies are going to devastate those regions. People are going to go broke. Things are going to get more expensive. These farming, mining, they're the industries that they're paying for our schools and our hospitals and our roads, and they're being wiped out. So I believe that all of those policies that Labor have put forward, we support the industries that have supported us for so long.
Absolutely.
And we wouldn't be in this situation. In that point, like we're going to transition, like the grid cannot run on wind and solar alone. For instance, like you try to take away the big spinning turbines from the coal-fired power stations, and the grid will collapse.
It's interesting.
It's that simple. And that's just engineering. Like I remember my brother was explaining that to me. He's an engineer.
Basic mathematics.
Yep. And that's what happened in Spain.
Yes,
a year ago or so. The peninsula just went blackout because they didn't have enough spinning turbines to keep the system running.
And I think now some of those places are starting to knock down some of these turbines and starting to dig up the coal that's underneath them. But I mean, I suppose we'll just close on this in terms of the climate change stuff.
Yep.
They tell us we've got to get rid of burning fossil fuel, blah, 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 all that crap, right? Back in the 80s, a bloke called Stanley Meyer invented a hydrogen cell for a petrol motor. And he built a car, and they were going to test it across America.
Yep.
And he said, this thing will run on seawater, tap water, it doesn't matter. It will convert the water into hydrogen gas.
Yep.
And he had the thing, they drove it around. They said, here it is. And then they murdered him.
Right.
They killed him. So for all the greenies and all these other people who say, oh, we've got to get away from the Yanks call it gasoline, right? We've got to get away from petrol or diesel. They had a working model of the thing that did exactly that, and they killed this bloke.
Right.
They poisoned him and murdered him. So where are all the greenies since then saying, we need to build those hydrogen cells? But you don't hear a word, nothing. So they're not genuine.
Yep.
The simple technology was there to fix a huge part of this alleged problem, but they buried it. They killed him, squashed the project, and then that whole thing was over and done with, and then we just were using fossil fuels. So that's where it's at. You can't trust these greenies. The Labor Party and the Greens here, they're totally and absolutely corrupt. When you look at the Libs, I don't think they're much better. The Nats aren't any better.
The Liberals just sided with the Labor Party and the Greens to vote against our amendment to remove all the funding for net zero from the appropriations budget. So we had that vote today, a few hours ago. Libs sided, Nats all abstained. They were absent.
Well, then I'm glad we've had this interview today. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been up to speed with that. So that's great that you can say that.
You check the actual amendment that Senator Roberts drafted is on my Facebook page, and I've got a copy of everyone who voted for what underneath in the comments. Yeah.
Well, and look, this is why it's so important to have people like you here, because at least someone's trying to take these people on. You can tell us, and then we can tell everybody.
Yep.
You know, and it's only through public pressure on these politicians that we're going to get anything changed. And like I think we discussed a little while ago, whether you believe the government is legitimate, illegitimate, and look, it is. It's since old Gough stuffed it up in 73.
Yep.
She's pretty dodgy. But the thing is, someone said to me years ago, the people in the room will make the decisions.
Yep.
So they're the people who, and I've said this many, many times, the people with the most guns win. And that's the politicians, that's the government. They've got the police, they've got the media, they've got the court system, they've got the army.
Yep.
They've got all the regulatory powers.
And also, I don't think it's too late to turn things around. Like, you look at what Trump's done in America, you look at what Nigel Farage is doing over in the UK, you look at some of these other, throughout Europe, some of these other people have had wins, and they have, maybe they haven't won the entire war yet, but they're winning a lot of battles and they're doing a lot of good. And I feel like One Nation, and there's a broader movement, not all just One Nation, there's lots of people out there. You know, we agree on a lot of things, but I think there's a real movement on, and I think some of those battles they're winning overseas, we can start winning them in Australia.
Well, I think we're in a lot of trouble, but this is why, you know, Billboard Battalion, that this is why, you know, we're constantly planting seeds, spreading information, educating people.
Yep.
Because, you know, hopefully at some point their light bulb comes on, and when it does, they've already got the information. They already know, and they swing over from, oh, we think you're conspiracy nutters, to, okay, well, here's the evidence, let's fight.
Yeah, I went and Googled it. Shit, pardon my French. Agenda 21 is real. Yeah, the light bulb goes on.
The whole, and they just need to feel the pressure from whatever point that affects them. So that's why we're putting out the information. And I can say that since we've been doing this, so many people have come up to me and said, "Well, Wade, you know, I heard you talk a couple of years ago, mate, and we thought you were a stark raving mad lunatic. All right, that was just the most ridiculous crap we've ever heard. But now we've seen this and this and this." But you've ticked off what you said, that and that and that, and mate, we're on board now. We understand it, and they're doing what they can.
Mate, thanks for the chat.
All right, terrific. Thanks very much, Sean, and we'll catch up again another day.